Thank you, Zidane and Eunice. Honestly, this speech made me so emotional. I'm trying to fight back my tears because it's a lot harder to speak when you're emotional. But you don't understand what's been robbed from us as Sudanese people, you know. And even in Zidane and Eunice's speech, it doesn't even give you, it was not enough for you to even understand what's been robbed from them. They lost their father in this genocide. They lost other siblings. They had their mother carry them while she was pregnant with their sister from one border to another, and they grew up in a refugee camp for 9 years. Do you guys understand what that means? It's not fair. Like Zidane said, that we're living in a world that gets to choose and pick who gets to live and die. We're literally living in a world that gets to pick and dictate the fate of our brothers and sisters. And that is not fair. And it hurts me even more that we have survivors of genocide standing from 2003, standing here in 2025, trying to convince you that their people are human. Have enough people not died for your heart to be moved, for your blood to move for us? And it's important to know that over 300,000 people were massacred in those first waves of killings, and from 2003 and 2004 alone. And the authorities have been warning the world that the genocide was never over. So you could only imagine the scale that it has reached at this point. And recently we've had reports from Sudan Doctors Network that 60,000 people in Al-Fashir, following the fall of Al-Fashir, and just 3 days were massacred. I don't think you're understanding what's happening in Sudan and why it's so integral to stand with the people of Sudan. And what you've got to understand is that the international community has neglected Sudan. They have neglected Darfur. Darfur has not received justice for their genocide, for them to be in a continuation of their genocide. What we see in parts of Darfur and Kurdistan is a direct continuation of those systematic killings, of those patterns. And that's why it's so integral to use your voice. And I think for us that are Sudanese, for Darfuris alone, for the last 30 years, it's been hell. For the rest of Sudan, for the last 5 years, from the beginning of the genocide, from the beginning of the revolution, we've literally just seen Sudan be destroyed to literally bits. We've watched our family die. We've seen mass displacement. We are witnessing the worst humanitarian crisis in the entire world right now. And so, even for us to be Sudanese, it comes with so much guilt, so much pain. Like Zidane said, it's so hard being on this part of the world, being able to dress the way that we dress, having that comfort, having all these privileges, while our people are literally dying and have been dying. And all we can do is literally stand here and try to convince the world that we are literally human, that we are worthy for governments to actually be outraged, for the world to be outraged of Sudanese dead. Sudan is an indigenous rights issue, it's a black rights issue, it's a woman rights issue. That's what you've got to understand. And it's so hard, to be truthfully honest, coming from Sudan and trying to advocate for our people, knowing that we live in the world that runs on anti-blackness, because it profits the world. The death of African people profits the rest of the world. That is the truth. And that's why it's easier for governments to be silent. It's easier for governments to just exploit us. When we're literally seeing Canadian armored vehicles, Chinese weaponry, we're literally seeing arms from the UK, from the US, all funneled through the UAE to the RSF. What does that say? What does that tell us? When we're literally dealing with a militia, it is not a paramilitary force. They do not represent the Sudanese people. You must understand that. The RSF is a militia, literally rebranded from the Janjaweed. The Janjaweed were responsible for the genocide in Darfur, the 2003 to 2004 ongoing genocide in Darfur. The Janjaweed, which is now the RSF, is responsible for that genocide. And that should get you to start understanding who we're dealing with. And they were legitimized and formalized by the former Bashir regime, the regime that the Sudanese people overthrew. So when we talk about remnants of the past regime, we're actually talking about the RSF, because they were created as a coup-proofing mechanism. And you can clearly see that today. And why it's so important to call them a militia, to call them a terrorist organization, is because they do not support the Sudanese people. They are not legitimate. And their agenda is to literally terrorize, exploit, and kill the Sudanese people. Tell me, what paramilitary that terrorizes and kills its own people is for its people? The RSF is not for the Sudanese people, and that's why we must not name it a civil war, because you are giving them legitimacy when you do so.